AVS
Simon, walking
Media
in front
Demo.
of Ralph, felt a flicker of incredulity. A beast with claws that scratched, that sat on a mountain top, that left no tracks, and yet was not fast enough to catch Sam and Eric. However Simon thought of the beast, there rose
AVS
before his
Media
inward
Demo.
sight the picture of a human at once heroic and sick. He sighed. Other people could stand up and speak to an assembly, apparently, without that dreadful feeling of the pressure of personality, could say what they would as though they were
AVS
speaking to only
Media
one
Demo.
person. He stepped aside and looked back. Ralph was coming along, holding his spear over his shoulder. Diffidently, Simon allowed his pace to slacken until he was walking side by side with Ralph and looking up at him through the coarse black
AVS
hair that
Media
fell now
Demo.
to his eyes. Ralph glanced sideways, smiled constrainedly as though he had forgotten that Simon had made a fool of himself, then looked away again at nothing. For a moment or two Simon was happy to be accepted, and then he ceased to think
AVS
about
Media
himself.
Demo.
When he bashed into a tree, Ralph looked sideways impatiently, and Robert sniggered. Simon reeled, and a white spot on his forehead turned red and trickled. Ralph dismissed Simon and returned to his personal hell.
AVS Media
They would
Demo.
reach the castle sometime, and the chief would have to go forward. Jack came trotting back. "We're in sight now." "All right, we'll get as close as we can." He followed Jack towards the castle where the ground rose
AVS
slightly.
Media
On their
Demo.
left was an impenetrable tangle of creepers and trees. Why couldn't there be something in that? Because you can see, nothing goes in or out. What about the castle then? Look. Ralph parted the screen of grass and
AVS
looked out.
Media Demo.
There were only a few more yards of stony ground, and then the two sides of the island came almost together, so that one expected a peak of headland. But instead of this, a narrow ledge of rock a few yards wide and perhaps 15 long continued the
AVS
island
Media
out into
Demo.
the sea. There lay another of those pieces of pink squareness that underlay the structure of the island. This side of the castle, perhaps 100 feet high, was the pink bastion they had seen from the mountain top. The rock of the cliff was split,
AVS
and
Media
the top
Demo.
littered with great lumps that seemed to totter. Behind Ralph, the tall grass had filled with silent hunters. Ralph looked at Jack. "You're a hunter." Jack went red. "I know." "All right."
AVS Media Demo.
Something deep in Ralph spoke for him. "I'm chief. I'll go. Don't argue." He turned to the others. "You, hide here. Wait for me." He found his voice tended either to disappear or to
AVS
come out too
Media
loud.
Demo.
He looked at Jack. "Do you think?" Jack muttered. "I've been all over. It must be here." "I see." Simon mumbled confusedly.
AVS
"I do believe
Media
in the
Demo.
beast." Ralph answered him politely, as if agreeing about the weather. "No, I suppose not." His mouth was tight and pale. He put back his hair very slowly. "Well,"
AVS
So long.
Media Demo.
he forced his feet to move until they had carried him out onto the neck of land. He was surrounded on all sides by chasms of empty air. There was nowhere to hide, even if one did not have to go on. He paused on the
AVS
narrow neck
Media
and looked
Demo.
down. Soon, in a matter of centuries, the sea would make an island of the castle. On the right hand was the lagoon, troubled by the open sea, and on the left, Ralph shuddered. The lagoon had protected them from the
AVS
Pacific,
Media Demo.
and for some reason only Jack had gone right down to the water on the other side. Now he saw the landsman's view of the swell, and it seemed like the breathing of some stupendous creature. Slowly the waters sank among the rocks, revealing pink
AVS
tables
Media
of granite,
Demo.
strange growths of coral, polyp, and weed. Down, down the water went, whispering like the wind among the heads of the forest. There was one flat rock there, spread like a table, and the waters sucking down on the four weedy sides made them
AVS
seem like
Media
cliffs.
Demo.
Then the sleeping Leviathan breathed out, The waters rose, the weeds streamed, and the water boiled over the table rock with a roar. There was no sense of the passage of waves, only this minute-long
AVS
fall
Media
and
Demo.
rise and fall. Ralph turned away to the red cliff. They were waiting behind him in the long grass, waiting to see what he would do. He noticed that the sweat in his palm was cool now, realized with surprise
AVS
that he
Media
did not
Demo.
really expect to meet any beast, and didn't know what he would do about it if he did. He saw that he could climb the cliff, but this was not necessary. The squareness of the rock allowed a sort of plinth round it, so that to the right, over the
AVS
lagoon,
Media
one could
Demo.
inch along a ledge and turn the corner out of sight. It was easy going, and soon he was peering round the rock. Nothing but what you might expect. Pink, tumbled boulders, with guano layered on them like icing, and a steep
AVS
slope
Media
up to
Demo.
the shattered rocks that crowned the bastion. A sound behind him made him turn. Jack was edging along the ledge. "Couldn't let you do it on your own." Ralph said nothing. He led the way over the rocks, inspected a sort of
AVS
half
Media
cave that
Demo.
held nothing more terrible than a clutch of rotten eggs, and at last sat down, looking round him and tapping the rock with the butt of his spear. Jack was excited. What a place for a fort! A column of spray wetted them. No fresh
AVS
water.
Media Demo.
What's that, then? There was indeed a long green smudge halfway up the rock. They climbed up and tasted the trickle of water. You could keep a coconut shell there filling all the time. Not me. This is a rotten place. Side by
AVS
side, they
Media
scaled
Demo.
the last height to where the diminishing pile was crowned by the last broken rock. Jack struck the near one with his fist, and it grated slightly. "Do you remember?" Consciousness of the bad times in between came to them both.
AVS
Jack
Media
talked
Demo.
quickly. "Shove a palm trunk under that, and if an enemy came, look." 100 feet below them was the narrow causeway, then the stony ground, then the grass dotted with heads, and behind that the forest. One heave, cried
AVS
Jack,
Media
exulting,
Demo.
and whee! He made a swooping movement with his hand. Ralph looked towards the mountain. "What's the matter?" Ralph turned. "Why?" "You were looking, I don't know how." "There's no
AVS
signal now,
Media
nothing to
Demo.
show." "You're nuts on the signal." The taut blue horizon encircled them, broken only by the mountain top. "That's all we've got." He leaned his spear against the rocking stone and pushed back 2 handfuls of hair.
AVS Media Demo.
"We'll have to go back and climb the mountain. That's where they saw the beast." "The beast won't be there." "What else can we do?" The others, waiting in the grass, saw Jack and Ralph unharmed and broke cover into the sunlight.
AVS
They
Media
forgot the
Demo.
beast in the excitement of exploration. They swarmed across the bridge and soon were climbing and shouting. Ralph stood now, one hand against an enormous red block, a block large as a mill wheel that had been split off and hung tottering.
AVS
Somberly
Media
he watched the
Demo.
mountain. He clenched his fist and beat hammer-wise on the red wall at his right. His lips were tightly compressed, and his eyes yearned beneath the fringe of hair. Smoke. He sucked his bruised fist.
AVS
Jack,
Media Demo.
"Come on." But Jack was not there. A knot of boys, making a great noise that he had not noticed, were heaving and pushing at a rock. As he turned, the base cracked, and the whole mass toppled into the sea, so that a thunderous plume of spray leapt
AVS
halfway
Media
up the cliff.
Demo.
"Stop it! Stop it!" His voice struck a silence among them. Smoke. A strange thing happened in his head. Something flittered there in front of his mind like a bat's wing, obscuring his idea.
AVS Media Demo.
Smoke. At once the ideas were back in the anger. "We want smoke, and you go wasting your time. You roll rocks." Roger shouted. "We've got plenty of time." Ralph shook his head. "We'll go to the mountain." The clamour broke
AVS
out.
Media
Some of the
Demo.
boys wanted to go back to the beach. Some wanted to roll more rocks. The sun was bright, and danger had faded with the darkness. "Jack," The beast might be on the other side. You can lead again. You've been. We could go by the shore. There's fruit. Bill came up to
AVS
Ralph.
Media
Why can't we
Demo.
stay here for a bit? That's right. Let's have a fort. There's no food here, said Ralph, and no shelter, not much fresh water. This would make a wizard fort. We can roll rocks right onto the bridge. I say we'll go on, shouted Ralph furiously. We've got to make certain
AVS
we'll go
Media
now.
Demo.
Let's stay here. Back to the shelter. I'm tired. No. Ralph struck the skin off his knuckles. They did not seem to hurt. I'm chief. We've got to make certain. Can't you see the
AVS
mountain?
Media Demo.
There's no signal showing. There may be a ship out there. Are you all off your rockers? Mutinously the boys fell silent or muttering. Jack led the way down the rock and across the bridge.
AVS Media Demo.